Well, it's been a quiet week here in Lake Scalagon, my hometown. This week, the Squids welcomed Caleb Jackson, the man behind the Squad 50 documentary. They discuss being bad with names, Furnace Fest goals, Unoriginal Vinyl, movies, play some games, and talk about how Squad 50 is here to stay became a reality.
Hey,
how are you?
Lovely to see both of you.
Yeah, good to see
you
you.
too, man.
What?
You gonna
An
get us
intro?
started? We trying to wait for Pete. What do you think? We haven't heard from him, so
I don't know. Let me shoot him a text.
yeah, and we know he wants to join, but he had a
Yeah.
work thing that he knew was going to go late, so he gave us a heads up of like I'm coming, but I'm really excited to get on.
Yeah. Well,
So,
whatever. I mean, I would really like to be him to be in it
same.
in general. If he comes late, it's not a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, happy Failure Puddle Friday, everybody. We are back, and our special guest today is the director, editor, and producer of the Squad 50 documentary. Squad 50 is here to stay. So we've got Caleb Jackson with us today,
Hello, gentlemen.
and we are without a Brock. Brock
We're
is,
Brockless
we are Brockless.
Brockless, temporarily
and short
Peteless.
of Pete. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks for making time tonight.
Yeah.
Of course. I feel like this has been relatively long time coming because
Hmm.
uh, I'm buds with both of you guys parasocially. Now it's a step more real.
Right. Definitely. Yeah, it is funny
Yeah.
to like connect and follow somebody on social media and so you get a little bit of a glimpse. So you're like, I feel like I know a little bit about what they're up to, but
Uh-huh.
I can't claim to know them to a degree that you'd be like, oh yeah, I know them well if you ran into somebody else. You're like, but I have an idea of what they did last week.
Yeah,
Right.
right. Yeah, you know enough to have a conversation.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what the idea behind, this podcast has been was, like we kind of bonded over, Joe and Reese's podcast and getting to know each other there. Then we all met at Furnace Fest in person. And then just kind of wanted to keep the conversations going. So we were doing, Zoom calls and then just started recording it just for fun. And then it kind of got to the who else would be fun to like bring on here to like hang out, and we just started inviting people that we thought would be fun to hang out and just have fun conversations with. So
Heck yeah, dude. So that kind of answers a question that I was gonna ask you guys, which is how did you meet at Furnace Fest? So if you already knew each other like through the Joe and Reese thing, did you guys like plan to meet up because you all knew you're gonna be there, or was it like, you know, I'm having a beer over here, you're having a beer over here. Oh, I know that guy, and you just like walked over and said hello to each other?
it was kind of planned. So it was, a lot of, hey, we should all meet up at some point. But then all the plans for the actual time and place to meet up just
Uh-huh.
kept falling apart like over and over and over and over.
The organization was not
Yeah,
smooth.
no, no. And part of that was just because, with all the different bands that are playing, it's
Yeah.
like trying to find a gap in the schedule when you've got three stages all going at once of, okay, nobody cares about any of the bands on any of the three stages. Quick, let's meet up here. Um, and I don't even remember like when it was that we ended up finally meeting up. Wasn't it just like, hey, after Goaty Hook, we're all going to be at Goaty Hook. Everybody just meet next to the soundboard or something like that.
I think so. I think it was around Goaty Hook and the Insiders, right?
Yeah.
Because didn't they go back to back at the
Yes.
pond stage, I think, that year? And we were around. And then for Pete, like I think I was just near him for one of those sets and recognized him, like from
Oh,
pictures and stuff. So spoke that way. It was like, hey, I think I know you from the Pickle and Boot Shop discussion page, which is a random way to introduce yourself to somebody, but it worked.
and I know it's like probably not that new of an idea. Or wait, what am I trying to say? Like it feels like a new idea to be like, hey, I know you from the internet. Let's, become friends in real life. But like it kind of reminds me of like whenever MySpace like first happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was truly new then. And I remember feeling like wow, the world is really opened up to me now, and like all the people that have my interests, I actually have, a connection point to them in some sense. But like I feel like in like 2024, 2025, like a lot of this stuff is like it never like the parasocial relationships that you have never become more than that. So I think it is really special that
Hmm.
you guys actually, kind of made something out of that and, did meet up and then went to Furnace Fest again, right? Because you
Yep.
guys
Hmm.
twice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now the how the pod. That's special to me.
And the funny part was, so we had like pretty much just started up when we went to Furnace Fest the second time, and we brought Brock along just
Hmm.
because we thought it would be funny because he doesn't listen to any like heavy music.
Okay. He's
But
a ska guy.
Yeah.
yeah, yep. But we get there and he was like the biggest celebrity at Furnace Fest. Everyone recognized him from like the 90s Christian 90s CCM recovery page and like the old school tooth and nail page from all his pictures of him holding up vinyl, like, hey,
Yeah,
it's this album's anniversary. So people
yeah,
kept stopping him and oh, it was hilarious.
yeah. I did too. I knew him from that. And then kind of put the pieces together like, oh, he's on that podcast. Like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it is cool where it shows that there's an actual community online where sometimes you think it might be silly, but I think Brock's recognition was he had just been so consistently involved with the same group of people that there was an awareness of this person who they
Yeah.
knew something, everybody knew something about. So it was like, oh, it is an online thing. And it's easy to like dunk on online commenting or whatever is just kind of like either superficial or unnecessarily mean or like real transient actions. But in
Mhm.
something like that where it's consistent, you're like, oh, that's a real like connection and as much as you can make it. And then I think because we can do these Zooms, it was like kind of what you said, the MySpace era. You had these message boards, you had the forums. It was a way to make your world bigger, to find the people like you who weren't in your neighborhood. But you were still kind of relegated to typing on a keyboard and reading
Yeah.
messages. And now we have this extension where it's like, okay, we might have had our introduction that way through some online interaction, but now you can actually talk to one another and not a phone. Like it'd be a whole different situation if we were trying to call somebody you'd never really interacted with. But a Zoom, especially post pandemic, where we've done them, you do them professionally, you do them for everything, like school,
Right.
organizations, clubs. Now it's so not a barrier. It's a real easy intro to say, you want to jump on a Zoom? And everyone's like,
Yeah.
sure, that works.
Hmm. Yeah. That was actually like kind of what was well, I don't know. Like, I guess I'll say it was the tool that allowed me to get into making documentaries. Um, was Zoom because I started doing doc stuff in 2020
Okay.
and I at that point I like didn't I hadn't picked up a camera in a while, so I was a little bit rusty. And so Zoom was like popping off like around the time that I started making docs. And fortunately, like my job, I work for the University of Arizona. Like, we all have Zoom accounts.
Hmm.
So it was just kind of like a built-in thing that I had. And I still use Zoom for the squad stuff a lot, obviously. Like all the special guests that I had on that weren't at the show in Orlando, where I did all through Zoom, or some of them just recorded themselves but and sent it to me. But Zoom, is an incredibly helpful tool that I feel like it kind of gets taken for granted in some
Hmm.
ways, like because it's
Mhm.
kind of, it's kind of like an iteration of Skype, where it's like we had Skype forever, but
Right.
Zoom is such a powerful tool that can do a lot more than than Skype can, especially when it comes to like recording. So filmmaker
Hmm.
brain is like, okay, I can do better stuff with it.
Oh yeah, I without Kevin, I wouldn't have known that you can record like the individual audio,
Yeah.
Yeah.
off of these meetings, which changes the whole game of whatever he's able to like. I don't understand editing. He can geek out with you on that. But I know it lets him get this cleaned up when we talk over each other or we interrupt. Like he can isolate and mute, and like that's pretty cool that you can turn something into a listenable conversation to
Yeah.
get the parts that need to be heard. that if it was one recording, and I had no idea Zoom did that because I'm familiar with it like at work. I work at a university too, and like we transitioned
Oh,
to
cool.
so many Zoom meetings and student meetings, just like I was just used to this is how we communicated, but I didn't know it had all these capabilities for recording that we're getting out of this now, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's definitely a lot that you can do, and I'm still learning stuff. I think it's funny that this meeting has turned into like a Zoom appreciation meeting.
Right.
I just went to a seminar of like the new features of Zoom, and I feel like I'm just like always learning things about it, because it's the industry standard for that stuff, and it goes super used. And I can kind of fall subject to like getting a little comfortable with the things that I know how to do and then not learning anything new. But
Right.
um yeah, there's a lot you can do with it.
It's kind of our on brand for us to have somebody on and then talk about something completely unrelated, like flags.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like, man, is Zoom my flags?
Gotta have something. You see my
Yep.
flag that Brock made?
I did. That's
It's insane.
priceless. I was so excited when you guys posted that on Instagram because I was at that show too, and so
Hmm.
I immediately recognized what was happening in it, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to listen to that.
That's been fun too because since we've connected on social media and now I can recognize you, watching those sets back, like I see you all over it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, you're like easy to pick out there in the crowd, and it was like, oh, there's Caleb. We're talking to him soon because I watched it recently before we talked to Jeff. I went back and when I was looking for that clip, and yeah, you were like real close behind me,
Oh,
in the
cool.
same vicinity. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, dude, I was trying to so D David Bunton from the Showdown was in the crowd there,
He
and
was, yeah.
and I was trying to enjoy the show, but also I was trying to like get footage of him in the crowd, like
Oh yeah.
trying to get it because I knew he was going to be at the show, and I knew I was going to try to find him and ask him to be in the documentary. And so my mind was going like steps ahead, like maybe he'll be in the documentary, and maybe I'll get B-roll of him, you know, in the crowd yelling to a song. So my mind was like half there and half like on the actual show.
That makes
And
sense.
as it turns out, I didn't get a good shot of him. I
Oh,
got like I got you can there's enough where I can like kind of find his face in it, but like I don't have that like money shot of him like singing into the mic or something. I really was hoping I would get that because I knew he would want to be in it. I knew he was a big fan, but
yeah.
failed.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that about how like you've got like four different things going on at the same time, like while you're there. Because I know there's been a few times where like we're recording something, for the podcast, and like they're all having a conversation, but in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, okay, I know what music I'm going to use for the outro based off of like some offhand comment that somebody made, like that made me think of this thing. So, okay, do I have that album? Okay, yeah, I think I have that album still.
Uh-huh.
Or like edits that I'm trying to like keep in mind, like, oh, I should write that down, and then I don't, and
Yeah. Yeah, you sound like you have ADD like me.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's a superpower.
Hmm.
In some way, like on the surface, ADD is like it kind of drives the people around you a little nuts sometimes because of how hyperactive you are and whatever. But like sometimes the multitasking is a superpower,
Right.
and like your ability to like float from like one thought to another and come back to the other one and be like, oh, I like accomplished something in my head while something else was going on.
Yep.
Obviously, I do get myself into trouble with that sometimes. But like for instance, like sometimes like I'll be trying to do one task and I'll end up doing four tasks in a row just because like I get hyper focused on
Hmm.
like, oh, I'm gonna clean off my desk. And then I take a paper that I need to throw away to the trash can. I'm like, oh, the trash can's full. Got to take out the trash. Take out the trash. Oh,
Yes.
there's dog shit outside. I got to pick up the dog shit and throw that away too. It's like, oh, I just did four more things than I intended to actually do.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
I can also tangentialize podcasts. That's another one of my superpower ADHD.
We appreciate good tangents around here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I have figured out all of different ways to like remember your names and faces. So whenever he pops on, I'm gonna break down how I remember who all of you are, even though you we're on Zoom and I can see all of your names, but it's just important to me that I have a an understanding of that in advance because I'm notorious for forgetting people's names. And
I'm really curious now to hear about the method, the system.
Yeah. No, I am also like notoriously bad with that. Like
Yep.
I always tell people, that I'm friends with, I'm like, hey man, if I know what your name is, you should be thankful and take that as a high compliment because holy crap, how many times have I like been introduced to somebody and they're like, "Hey, I'm so and so." And I'm like, "Hey, I'm Kevin." And
Go
I
right
don't
past it.
remember what
Yeah.
you said. Yep, I don't remember what you just said your name was. I cannot remember for the life of me. Um,
mhm.
but yeah.
Yeah, it can be a problem.
Yeah. It can.
It's like
It's like
if
everybody
you,
suddenly has nicknames.
That's
yeah,
right.
Yep.
I actually need to be better about like like what do they call that? Like mnemonic devices, like
Oh
Hmm.
yeah. Yep.
in just my everyday life, just because like I feel like I'm always getting it wrong and it's not that embarrassing to me. Like I really it doesn't like I don't like go home and get frustrated at myself, but it's just like if I took 30 seconds to
Hmm.
try and remember somebody's name, I know it would stick,
Hmm.
but I
Right.
often never do. I try to write it down. I have a notebook and I try to write it down if I meet somebody new. And whenever I do that, it almost always sticks. And I'm like proud of myself. I'm like, oh yeah, like the next time I saw that person, like I didn't see him for a couple months and I like actually remembered their name and I felt good about myself.
Oh,
And then
nice.
like
I'm gonna
thinking,
have to try that. So we had this is a perfect example of it, and it kind of made me feel good because it wasn't just me. The department that's next door to us at work hired somebody new, and they were bringing her around and introducing her to everybody in the office, and and it was just a quick like, hey, this is so and so. She's in, you know, working in our department. This is what she does. This is Kevin. This is what he does. And, kind of like boom, boom, boom. She goes back around the corner. Maybe 30 seconds later, my coworker that sits next to me just turns to me and goes, "Do you remember what her name was? I can't remember what her name was." And I was like, "I have no idea." And we couldn't figure it out. And then I think I went to Furnace Fest. And when I came back, she had already quit.
Problem solved.
And I was like, oh, there was somebody different sitting at the desk. And I'm like, who's that? And they're like, oh, that other girl, she quit like 2 days ago. So like she was only here for like a week and a half.
yeah,
And she's like, I still don't know what her name was.
yeah. Oh man. And then you're inevitably going to call the new girl what the old girl's name was.
Right.
I had a roommate once who I didn't know their name. Lived with them for a semester. So I uh I lived with
Wow.
a guy,
That
rented a
takes the
house with a
cake.
yeah, well, I don't even know what she looked like to this day because I was moving into a house with a friend and there was a third guy and right before we moved in the third guy bailed and moved in with some other buddies and so we just had this extra room and expense. That was the big thing is like budgeted for splitting this three ways. Now we got to split it two. This is no good. And
Mhm.
so my roommate, my friend is like, "Hey, I found this person through so and so. She's in law school. This was when I still was in Gainesville, Florida after grad school. It's like she's in law school. She just needs a place to crash. She's always in the library and she graduates. She just has one semester here and she goes back to Tampa every Thursday night, comes back Monday, but she'll pay whatever. He told me, I was like, perfect. So I met her like one time and like introductions, don't remember her name, don't remember what she looked like, and then just never saw her for like four
Like
months.
ships passing in the night.
She never spent time in common areas in the house. I had a bathroom in my bedroom, so you'd like there was no crossing of even like walking down the hall to the bathroom. So she was in a room. If she was in the house, her door was shut. She left early in the morning to go to the campus to study, and then she'd stay in the library late at night and come back. Never knew if she was there. I don't know her name. Don't know what she looks like. I know exactly zero about her other than she paid a third of the rent for a semester, and she was the best roommate I've ever had.
Wow, okay. That's all
Oh,
right.
that's
Now,
amazing.
I have zero
her.
disagreements, complaints, or anything to say about this person because I never saw her for a
Mm,
whole semester. But she paid part of the rent, so I was like, she's
nice.
fantastic. 5 stars.
Dang.
Yeah.
I really enjoy getting to know people based on details about their lives.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask you guys a few questions. So
Awesome. Yeah, love it.
it
Yes.
will it will help me remember details about you and anyone listening. Now you'll know something about these guys. Okay, so here's what I want to know. What is your favorite record, like musical record? What is your favorite podcast that you listen to? Not including the Joe and Reese one, right? Because that's,
Okay. Yep.
because you guys are basically sister pods to that. So that
Yeah.
Right.
doesn't count.
We can't suck up to them. Yeah.
And what is your go-to Costco lunch? So like from the counter, not like
Right.
grocery wise. Okay, Jared, you go
Mm.
first.
So when you say favorite record, do you just mean album or like an actual vinyl that I possess?
Let's say favorite vinyl because I feel like you
Okay.
could go different directions with that.
I think I would say Taking Back Sundays, Tell All Your Friends that I got not long after it came out. And it was one of, I've gone through vinyl phases in my life where I was like, I'm going to be a vinyl guy. And that mostly involved like thrift store, yard sale shopping. And I would buy like old records.
Mhm.
Um, and then I'd have a cheap record player and it'd stop working and I'd move. And I was like, I'm not a vinyl guy anymore. So I've done that like 3 or 4 times, but I
Yeah.
feel like that Tell All Your Friends was an album that I really, really cared about. And it was kind of maybe the first album I intentionally sought out of I want to own this and it's current and it's related to me and it's not just a 50 cent find at the Goodwill of like, oh, Beach Boys, I'll grab it. It's a quarter. Like I'll grab all
Oh,
six
okay.
of them they have. It was like I bought it on eBay, I
Uh-huh.
think, if I remember. It was online, and I think it had to be eBay because this was early 2000s. I don't know
Oh,
where else I
okay.
would have bought something on a online marketplace. It had to be eBay.
Yeah.
And I had looked and they were going for different prices and I finally found one at a decent price and like I'd still love that out. Like that brings me right back to distinct moments in college friends of mine that I'm still close to, like an album I really, really love from start to finish. And it was like a thing I sought out on vinyl on purpose that wasn't just I came across a store or it was released and I bought it kind of the way I do now. And it wasn't
Yeah.
and that was kind of a transition from like vinyl's just old records. You could buy a new
Uh-huh.
one. So I'm gonna go with Tell Your Friends from Taking
Uh-huh.
Back Sunday.
That's so
And I've got a
special.
blue variant. I don't know what year it's from. Like,
Let me ask you a question.
sure.
Did you buy that record before owning a record player?
I believe I don't think I ever bought records before I had a record player, but I went through phases with a working record player or not while owning vinyl.
Okay.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I was just curious.
Yeah.
So if we're going for vinyl, I I've got three in mind. So one would be Star Wars New Hope soundtrack on vinyl. I remember listening to it all the time when I was a kid, and just having like, it was like the double like gatefold, like just all the pictures from the movie and all that stuff. That would be one from when I was a kid. Moving on to high school, it would be Teenage Politics on vinyl.
Oh, very
And
nice.
the reason that one holds sentimental value to me is I was on a college trip with my high school, kind of checking out different colleges and stuff like that. I happened to notice, I believe it was Messiah College in Pennsylvania, noticed in their bookstore they had Teenage Politics on vinyl, and I was a huge MXPX fan. I don't think anybody else in my class was, and I didn't have enough money to get it, and I was kind of bummed about it, because it's like, oh, it's a blue vinyl, limited edition. It's got a bonus track on it that's not on the CD. And I was like, shoot. And throughout the day, we're kind of like walking around, and then late at night, it was winter, snow on the ground. We're walking down along the river. One of my classmates was like, "Oh, daring like trying to dare somebody to like swim across the river in the middle of the night."
Mhm.
And I, of course, was like, everyone was like, "No, no, 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 no." So then he dares me to do it, and I was like, "I'll do it if you buy that vinyl for me."
Oh,
And he's like, "Yeah, you're not going to do it." And I was like, "Oh yeah?" Rip off my shirt, take off my jeans, so I'm just down to my boxers, jump in, swim across the river. Now I'm soaking wet, have to find my way to like a bridge or something to get back across to where my clothes are, run inside to the dorm, take a hot shower, but he did buy me the vinyl and I still have it.
that's a hard-earned vinyl.
A good
Yeah.
narrative.
Yep.
Did you drop your unoriginal vinyl coin in that thing?
Oh, I should.
Yeah.
And then I think a more recent one would be 90 pound wuss shorthand operation.
That's a recent pick.
Yeah, I mean,
You splurge
recent,
on that?
recent-er. Uh, but I actually just got that one probably within the last 5 years. And Jeff actually sent it to me. So Jeff from 90
That's
Pound
even
Was
more
sent me.
special.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. I've been talking with him online and talking about that album. And he's like, I have a couple vinyl kicking around. Do you want one? And I was like,
Oh,
absolutely. And
what a
That's
guy.
awesome, man.
he ended up
Yeah.
sending it to me. And it was cool at Furnace Fest, finally getting to meet him in person and, I thanked him for the vinyl and uh, yeah, it was awesome.
Dude, I have a funny story about that. So I'm like a little younger for like of a tooth and nail kid, like all the 90s stuff like I was too young for.
Okay.
So I've discovered a lot of the great records like later in life,
Hmm.
Hmm.
um, including 90 Pound Wuss's Shorthand Operation. I didn't realize that there had been a pressing of it. And so on the tooth and nail on like one of the like tooth and nail Facebook groups, I like made a post basically saying like, hey, which of the Tooth and Nail albums would you love a vinyl release for? And I like listed a few, like I think it was like a poll maybe.
Oh,
And
okay.
and I like listed that one on there and like all the OGers just like lit my ass
Roasted
up.
you?
Like, there's already a pressing of it.
How dare
I'm
you
like,
not
oh
know
man,
everything?
I just got roasted. But I thought it was actually pretty funny though, because I kind of like seeing the like OGers get their panties in a twist over stuff sometimes. I don't
It is
know.
fun. Yeah.
I'm like
For
super
sure.
not. I'm like that's like just like not my energy. Like I'm not gonna correct someone over something like that. But like so now I kind of want to go back and be like, oh guys, wouldn't it be so sick if Training for Utopia's Plastic Soul Impalement got a first pressing next year? Like, Jason, please hook it up and just like watch everyone like lose their minds.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That's funny.
That's a good story.
When he had mentioned that he had the extra vinyl, it was the same. I had no idea that it was even on vinyl as well. So, um,
Oh, really? Oh, that's
yeah,
funny. Could have just as well been you than me.
yeah,
That's right.
Sometimes ignorance can produce a vinyl from the band. Sometimes you get lit up by it.
You can get mocked. Yeah. What was the next? The next question was podcast, right? Besides the
Yeah,
Pickle and Boot Shop.
favorite podcast that you listen to?
Hmm.
So I'm going to say Six Trophies. Have you guys ever heard of this podcast?
Have
No.
not.
So it is an NBA related podcast, but
Okay.
it's co-hosted by Shea Serrano and Jason Concepcion.
Oh, nice.
And Shea Serrano is my favorite, I guess, Twitter follow. I mean, Blue Sky, where whatever social media we're on. Twitter's where I encountered him. But I love him for a lot. He's just the funniest guy. He's the most optimistic,
I have
generous
one of his books.
social media. Yes, movies and other things. I have that book. I have all of his books. I buy everything he makes. So he has a hip hop and other things was like he had a movie and other things or basketball and other things. He had the rap coloring book was like an early thing he did with Bun B. He was like he lived in Houston at the time, so like Bun B was there. But the guy is just like he was a middle school science teacher and his wife was a teacher and they had twins and he was like I got to make some more money. Like we like rent's expensive. We got these kids. And so he literally like Googled like side hustle jobs or how do you make money on the side. And one of the options that popped up was a writer. And the way he tells the story is like, so boom, I'm a writer. Like I got to make some money. So now I'm a writer. And he put out pitches and ended up with like connecting some local circular in Houston. And he like wrote a story on some local rapper or something. And that was like his first gig, which led to some other like music related, mostly hip hop, but he was a big sports nut and expanded and he did this rap coloring book and I may be getting the details wrong or the chronology, but he did a rap coloring book with Bun B somehow through all that, which is what it sounds like, a coloring book about like rappers and stuff. And then it led to he somehow interacted with Molly. Oh, I can't remember her last name on when Grantland.com was still a thing, when Bill Simmons' website that like ESPN
Uh-huh.
owned, and Bill Simmons hired him to write for Grantland. And that was kind of like his breakout. And then he did basketball and other things, like his first. I think that was the first of the books, which turned into hip hop and other things, and movies and other things. And now he did like Primo's, a show on Amazon Prime, where he like
Yeah, dude.
created and co-produced. And
Did you watch it?
I did. It's funny,
It's
like
good. I've been meaning
it's
to.
good. And his Twitter like account was like what kind of sucked me in. It's he's both funny and like he like blocks people for the funniest reasons, but the way he does it is great. And like, but he's super generous. He'll just like he'll self-publish something and then give all the money away. And
Nice.
that was before he kind of got really, like now he's kind of a big entity working in my mind. But early on, he would do a project or someone would reach out to him and be like, "Hey, my kids are like my class is trying to take a field trip to the zoo, but we don't have any money." And so he just put it out on Twitter and like within an hour, there'd be like $14,000 for, a seventh grade class to go to the
Wow.
science museum. Or he'd hear about like a food bank needed something. He'd put it out to his Twitter followers and raise like 100 grand in 2 days for a local food bank. Just like he heard about a cause, he's like, "Y'all get after it. Like let's give him some money." And he would give his own money and he'd like show you his Venmo. I gave him money. So like I just found him like he's funny but real positive, which is rare on social
Hmm.
media to be like witty, insightful, sarcastic, but also like this positive energy pushing for good things. And it was like to me kind of captured, oh, so this is how technology and this like social media world and this kind of different relationship can be a good thing. He's got this consistent following of fans and he keeps putting it to good use of like helping other people and not just boosting his own platform or getting new deals. And those have come his way, but at least what he puts out publicly that I can decipher and like also from what people say about him of like he was just generous and it kept coming back to him in opportunities. And so that's like the longest plug ever for my favorite podcast, Six Trophies with Shea Serrano and Jason Concepcion on the Ringer
Heck yeah,
Network, I
dude.
think, or whatever they do.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Thank you. Kevin.
I don't know if it's the ADD or what. I don't know that I again like the vinyl. I don't know that I can narrow it down to one, but it's kind of a similar theme. That I think two of my favorites would be Dumb People Town. which is Randy and Jason Sklar and Dan Van
Uh,
Kirk. So people will send them in stories and just about, like, oh, this was in my local paper, and it'll be, like woman breaks into local deli, steals potato salad, hijacks a car, crashes it into a telephone pole, and is caught by police hiding in a doghouse. And like just goes in, like follows stuff like that. And then the other podcast that I really enjoy is The Dollop, which is it's typically an American history podcast where one of the hosts, basically reads out this story from history to this other guy who knows nothing about it. Like he won't tell him like, oh, this is about George Washington or, like Ben Franklin or some other random person. Uh, he'll just kind of start with the story and just kind of they're both comedians, so it's just, jokes back and forth and like acting out stuff. And then like as the guy slowly realizes like, oh no, this is about so and so. I know what's, like what's gonna happen, or you're just learning all these like insane facts about this person or this event in history. So those two are really fun. I like those.
what about you, Caleb?
Oh, my favorite podcast?
Hmm. Pickle Home
Um,
Companion. You can say it.
Dude, my favorite podcast is probably the Rewatchables, which is also on the Ringer.
Yeah.
It's one of those it's a movie podcast, and it's one of those that I religiously like watch at the same time every week. Like it comes out on Monday nights,
Oh, nice.
and no matter what the movie is, I'll put it on before I go to bed. It's my jam.
Very cool.
Final question, real
Oh, yeah.
quick.
Oh, right.
Just pop it off real quick. What is your go-to Costco lunch? Jared, you go first.
I don't know that I've ever been to a Costco, which really makes this harder. But I think I would go pizza because I'm not a hot dog guy.
Okay,
Even though hot dog is the thing, but it
correct
reminds
answer.
me, my grandfather, when I was a kid, we would go to the Price Club, which was an early iteration of the warehouse clubs.
Yes.
And part of that whole routine is he would call them the death dogs, like the giant hot dog for cheap. And so it would be like, guys, we got to go to the Price Club to get whatever it is my grandparents needed to get, like grocery wise or paper towels. But the payoff was going to be we're going to get a death dog. And so I have childhood memories of hot dogs at the warehouse, but I would probably go pizza today.
Heck yeah. Right
Yeah.
answer. Okay, Kevin, pop it off. Costco
All
lunch.
right. I don't think I've ever been inside of a Costco,
What
honestly.
is going on? Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
So I
I
looked it
live in
up
the middle of
and
nowhere. That's my problem.
right. So I looked it up. The closest one is about an hour away.
Oh wow.
And so I looked up their menu just to see like what I'm like, I know they've got, the hot dogs because you see the memes about it and all that. I was like, hey, I just assume pizza and all that. So I looked at it. I saw something on the menu that I think would be my go-to. I saw something, it was called the chicken bake.
Chicken bake.
Um,
Yes.
yeah. So it's chicken breast with cheese, bacon, Caesar dressing, and it's wrapped in bread. So I'm
Yeah.
assuming
It's
it kind of
basically
like
like
a,
a giant hot pocket.
yeah.
Oh,
And
It's
it's only
pretty
like
good.
$4.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
cheap. It's like 1,000 calories, but it's cheap and it's filling.
that's some
yeah.
bang for your buck.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that looked, that probably at least, my first few trips, that probably would be my go-to. Um, I think that's probably my answer.
Okay, great. Sorry,
What's
I just
yours?
had to ask. I had to get that in.
No, that's important. I
Nope.
almost overlooked a really critical piece. What
Okay.
do you get at Costco? What's your go-to?
Slice of pepperoni pizza, Diet Coke.
Now we're talking. I'm on board with that all the way. And so you are in Arizona. I wasn't sure. Like I knew you did the screening, the first one in Arizona. So that's home for you.
Yeah, I'm from Tucson.
Oh,
Oh,
cool.
okay.
My family for the most part all lives here.
My parents got married in Tucson,
Oh,
actually.
nice. Do you come
Yeah.
from like an Air Force family or something?
So
Oh,
both my dad was in the Air Force when they got married, and my grandfather, actually, my mom's dad, was in the Air Force. He retired out there, and my dad had just gotten started.
Oh,
and
cool.
was stationed. Oh, I think they met in Nebraska, and my grandfather got stationed in Arizona, so my dad found his way to orders to Arizona
Yeah.
to follow my mom, kind of thing, at the time. But yep, they got married there in Tucson and lived there for a little bit before. That was before I was born. I was born in Colorado, but like after that.
Oh, gotcha. That's
Mhm.
so funny. Like all the Air Force hubs, like my wife's family spent a lot of time in Colorado. My father-in-law is was in the military and
Okay.
stationed out there.
Yeah, I was born there and we moved, I think, when I was 2 months old. So like I don't know anything about Colorado
Yeah.
personally, like from my own experience that I can remember.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was born there. So when people are like, "Where are you from?" Born, I was like, "Oh, a place I've never been."
Yeah.
I made a
Yeah.
brief
That's like,
stop to be born.
yeah. My sister-in-law was like born in Germany, kind of similarly, is like, I don't really, you know,
My
like
sister was born in the Philippines, and so yeah, like no real connection to it, but was born in a foreign country.
nice.
Yeah, but we
It's,
moved when she was 2, so same thing, no knowledge.
yeah. There's a lot to see on this side of the country. I think particularly like Tucson is a pretty cool place. Like Southern Arizona in general is like it's kind of a vibe. Like I'm a little deaf to it now because I've like lived here for so long, but there it is very like rich in culture, I would say. There's a lot of really cool stuff to see and like kind of like how I don't know, in my mind I'm like when I go to like Oregon and I see all the like amazing trees and stuff, like, or
Yeah.
really anywhere I go, I'm always looking at the trees and I'm like, these trees are beautiful. I was in Virginia for the first time recently. Like I was like googly eyes like over the trees because they were so beautiful. In Arizona, like there's saguaro cactuses
Hmm.
like everywhere. There's like forests of saguaro cactuses, and I just drive by them every day like it's nothing. And then people come here and they're like,
Right.
kind of like you just forget. You forget.
Hmm. I lived a while in Florida, and same thing with like palm trees, is there's everywhere, so you don't think. And then, yeah, living here, for example, if someone will get really excited about going somewhere to see palm trees, and they're like, "Oh, they were just in the yard."
Yeah.
Not a novel concept.
It made the news up here because one of the local hotels and water park got bought up by Margaritaville, and they planted a bunch of palm trees out front, and people are like, "Palm trees in Massachusetts? Like what?
Foreign concept.
That's not right. How are
Well,
they going to survive the winter?" And I'm like, "Well, I mean, it hasn't really snowed in a couple of years."
that's funny that you mentioned Florida. Like people forget how awesome Florida is or something. I hate Florida. I can't handle it. It's so muggy and
Hmm.
like
Yep.
for some reason there's like something about Florida that really rubs me the wrong way. That's where we shot the documentary, and I was like, we should have done this in Georgia, guys.
Yeah. I'm no, because it was in Orlando, right, where their show
Yeah.
was.
Hmm.
I'm no fan of Orlando, and that's my controversial take. Is so many people love because it's big, obviously Disney nearby, and it's a vacation destination with all the parks, and I have no interest in going on vacation to something like Disney. I would always be like you talked about going to see or seeing trees when you travel outside of your area. I'd rather go see Yosemite or the Grand Canyon
Okay.
or some natural thing that's like truly like incredible. If I'm going to
Yeah.
spend that kind of money, then rather than I don't want to go to uh, a castle that was built in Orlando. But the thing about Orlando to me is because it's a tourist destination and it just really sprung up around Disney, is
Uh-huh.
most places you visit, there's the local whatever, like the history there of like the diners or the restaurants or the culture, even if it grew into a tourist destination. But Orlando was nothing before it was a tourist destination. So there's nothing to me, and somebody from Orlando, if they're listening, can correct me. But there's nothing distinctly local about it. It's a string of every chain restaurant that exists in America, from the cheapest to the most expensive, or every outlet mall option. But it's just huge brands that are consolidated and concentrated in one place. But you can't be like, okay, what are you known for around here, and where's the best place to get it? You go get a cheesesteak in Philly, you get deep dish pizza in Chicago, or some, street pizza in New York. There's just nothing like that in Orlando. It's like, what is the Orlando thing? And you're like, a tourist trap, old Kissimmee. I don't know what you go to.
I had never thought about that before. I mean, I don't really know Florida well enough to know that or something or whatever, but like
Yeah.
that's hilarious. It's like where do you go for like local?
And I grew up in the Panhandle, which is a whole different idea of Florida than most people have, because I wasn't on the beach, which the
Yeah.
beach, like, I was lived there in the 90s, so even that was like peak spring break Panama City MTV, the beach, like
Oh, dang.
college, but trashy, um,
College.
during that period. But where I lived was close, just a few miles from Alabama. So whatever you think of like the deep South, that was the version of Florida I lived in, like
Yeah,
peanut farms, dairy
yeah.
farms, watermelons, like those were all big. That's what you did. It was just like tiny little 2 and 3 thousand person towns and a lot of
Oh, are you
agriculture.
saying that you were like close to both? Like you were like near the beach where MTV stuff was happening and you
Yeah.
were like near farm stuff?
Yeah, so where I lived was, and I lived literally on a dirt road outside of a flashing light town, so like just the woods,
Mhm.
in really rural redneck Florida. But Panama City, we could be at the beach in 45 minutes. So like you'd leave small town, and that's also where we just went to the beach. It wasn't necessarily a vacation destination. It was 45 minutes. You just shot down there you could wake up on Saturday and be like, let's go to the beach and just
Yeah.
drive down. It
Mhm.
wasn't a planned thing. And you would always forget, or I would, oh, it's spring break season, which is pretty lengthy because it's different times at different universities across the country. So it wasn't like a week period. It was like a 6 to 8 week period of spring breakers. And then the beach is transformed into, like a line of cars barely moving on the strip, just cruising.
Yeah.
And then it was peak MTV. So it was every famous, whoever's like top 10 of the video rotation was performing. And there are these two giant nightclubs on the beach, which are the world's largest nightclubs they like to advertise. And so
Yeah.
it's just chaos, for like party chaos, basically.
Yeah. Right.
And kids scraping their dollars together to like put as many people into one hotel room to trash it as possible kind of
Uh-huh.
vibe.
Wow.
Foam parties and wet t-shirt contest. It was like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you'd leave the little like country town and go to the beach and forget what you were like driving into.
I mean, now I'm all interested. Like, how did that stuff work? Like, I mean, I guess I'm more thinking about the MTV aspect of it specifically. Like, would they like have events and stuff? And you like because you live there, would you like see flyers for like, oh, like Limp Bizkit's gonna be playing on this day, like it's a free show. We need to pack out the crowd or whatever. Was that ever like a thing for you?
Not necessarily for me specifically. So I don't know what you know about us, but like my background was I was a homeschooled pastor's kid, like from a
Oh,
very conservative Christian
uh-huh.
household, and then went to a little Bible college that was also there in the Panhandle. So when it was like just me going to the beach, not my family, we were all college kids at this pretty conservative Bible college. I mean, I'm sure people were going down to, I would assume people were going down to Panama City, but my close friends weren't going down there
Yeah.
for the full experience. We were
Mhm.
going down there for the beach and we'd gawk a little bit because, but we were probably intimidated or scared of it more than joining in. But if you went down there, so there were Club La Vila and Spinnaker were these two giant clubs on the beach, and they were side by side, shared a parking lot. And like growing up, there was local radio stations. Club La Vila advertised, and if you look it up, actually, the guy who owned it got taken down by the FBI on like a money laundering drug ring and like a whole criminal empire basically run through this club. But at the time, it was they would advertise as like world's largest nightclubs. I don't remember how many thousands of square feet, and it was like seven different levels. There was like the pool party. There was the main, like, with just like typical top 40 music. There was like a house room. There was like a
Mhm.
goth room. There were like, it was
Oh,
clubs within a clubs of multi levels. And
wow,
that's where
that's
MTV would set up shop.
okay.
So they would
Relation.
build stages inside, like by the pool for sure. And they would host their like MTV Spring Break games and they'd be out by the pool. It was at that place and it's literally on the beach. So
Yeah.
you could also like just stroll down the beach and be on the beach side of it. And so they didn't really have to get crowds to come, but people would go there to try to get in because every, like Cisco's Thong Song was like my freshman year. That was the anthem. It was like Cisco Thong Song, Juvenile back that ass up, right?
Mhm.
Well, they performed. Both of them were there for spring break. So these are like, it's the anthem of spring break, but it's the person who performs it was there and everything that goes with it. And so they would throw all these themed parties and with the artists, and they would host different, whether it was, and then it's also like the Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, it was the late 90s, like 99, 2000, 2001, like a little earlier for me. That was my early college years.
Oh,
But it was
okay.
just cramped. Like the beach was like it was normally a 45-minute trip. If you're in the spring break traffic, it might take you 3 hours to get to the beach where you could park your car because it was just a standstill.
That's crazy. I wonder if they've made a documentary or anything about that. It is a weird point in history, like
Hmm.
the late 90s. I feel like there was just a lot of that going on. For some, like, I don't know what it was about that era, but it seemed
Yeah.
like the chaos of like college age kids around that time was like pretty nuts. I don't know if you guys have watched any of the docs or podcasts about Woodstock 99, but like
Yeah.
they,
Yes.
they talked a lot about how there was like something in the air about like the hugeness of popular music and like of just really, really burgeoning youth culture that was like ready for all that stuff and was like
Hmm.
ready to party. Like it feels like kids party now, but like it seems like they're not as wild anymore. I don't know. That's just my opinion, but
I
you
think the
know,
stats back that up. Like they drank
Yeah.
less than they did. There's like less
Yep.
sex. There's a lot of like adolescent excess or youth excess. At least the statistics say it's less drinking. I mean, they don't drink much. Like, I think our age, Kevin drinks more than 20 somethings now.
Yeah.
So like it's a different,
fun.
yeah, it's a totally different thing. But I think you're right. There's not the same kind of vibe of, well, and like you think of the really like dirtier or seedier side of like that was also like the Girls Gone Wild era. Like you
Yeah,
can't imagine something that exploitative being mainstream, and I don't think it would fly in 2025, where it's just gross. But it was
yeah,
on like network. I mean, it was late at night or whatever, but they would advertise on network TV, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
And so it wasn't hidden in some strange corner of the internet. It was just like in mainstream consciousness.
I feel like that would be viewed in common knowledge as being gross now.
Yeah.
But at
Yeah.
the time, it felt like there was a lot of these like culture war ideas of like new metal, rap rock. Those are the same thing. Why did I say that? You
Blame
know?
Limp Bizkit for everything. I think that's what we can do.
Yes. I'm assuming you're on Mac with all your editing.
Oh, I'm actually not.
Oh, really?
I've been a PC guy.
Don't tell Pete.
Don't tell Pete. Oh,
He's
okay.
an Android guy. We give him grief about not having an iPhone and turning the chat green. Yeah, he's resolute in his position.
I'm not like hardcore about that stuff. It kind of flips like for the video world. Like Mac was the standard
Right.
for a
Mhm.
long time. I kind of got in on the tail end of that. So I bought my first computer in 2009, which was a MacBook Pro. I ran that thing into the ground. I actually still have it. So when I lived in LA and I was like working in film there, like I never really needed to use a computer. like for my job because I was like building stuff, like building like props and sets and stuff.
Oh,
And
that's cool.
so whenever I did start getting back into like making my own stuff again, I was behind. So I all I had was this old Mac and kind of had to gather like, oh, okay, what are people using now, whatever. And it had kind of flipped back to PC, like Macs were expensive. And so
Mm,
filmmakers weren't really using Macs anymore as much as they were in like, the mid to late 2000s, I guess.
Hmm.
So yeah, I bought a PC and haven't gone back. The technology's come a long way. And so the machines that they make now like are pretty powerful, like even the
hmm.
lower cost ones. For what I do, like I don't really do like a lot of motion graphics or like 3D work anymore. So I don't really need like that powerful of a setup. Like all I really do is like edit and do Photoshop and, you know, occasionally like jump into After Effects and do some stuff, but like nothing like I don't need like a $60,000 Mac tower to power what I do. Don't get me wrong, it'd be nice to have sometimes.
Yeah,
Be
right.
a cool toy to have, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to give you one, you'll take
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah. Because I think at this point we need to like start talking about the doc too a little bit because I don't know when
Yeah.
Pete will get here and we don't want to
Yeah,
waste our time.
why don't we
Hold on.
Yeah.
Just got a
Yeah.
text from Pete.
Yeah. He's delayed.
I guess we'll see him when we see
I
him.
think so.
We can have fun without him. So there.
That's right. We'll get into it. Have you been in Arizona your whole life, Caleb? Is that home?
I lived in LA for a few
Oh, that's right.
years
You said that you worked in
after
film, right?
college. Yeah, I basically I went to the University of Arizona and I like interned in LA for a summer
Hmm.
in my junior year, came back, graduated, and then like took a job with a production designer out there and kind of worked in the like prop set design and costume styling, I guess you would call it departments for a few years. And then I met my now wife. She lived in Arizona, I lived in LA, and then we both decided that we wanted to leave the places we lived to be together in Tucson. So that was like 10 years. We actually just celebrated 10 years of meeting each other
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
nice.
Congrats.
on New Year's because we met at a New Year's party.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, I've only lived in Tucson and Los Angeles.
So how'd you
Okay.
I'm just curious why Squad 50? So like as you were selecting a documentary topic, not only did you pick a band, but you picked that specific band. What is the motivation behind Squad 50? What attracted you to that?
Well, short answer is they're my favorite band.
There we go.
Um,
Okay.
I
That's a
I
very good
saw
answer too.
yeah.
It's good.
We
Um,
I
approve.
mean, not everyone's a fan of their content, right? That they make, so it's different if you're a
yeah.
fan.
Well, that's the thing is it's like I mean, this was a super low budget, super high effort project
Mhm.
for me. So it was like I probably don't think that I would have had the motivation to do it for a band that I didn't care so much about.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
So short answer is like they're my favorite. They were down and they had it was kind of the right place, right time because I approached them in late 2021 about doing a Squad 50 documentary and they had already recorded Solid Gold. And so they were kind of at the point where they were starting to think about playing. They were like,
Okay.
we did all these songs and we've never played them live. And, it was still like kind of late pandemic and they were really motivated by playing. And they still are. Those
Yeah.
guys are very like, they're kind of party animals in the sense of like, they just want to get together and have a good time.
Hmm.
And so I wasn't even thinking about doing a concert. I just wanted to like kind of what I approached them about doing was like, let's all get together where in somewhere, all in the same place, and I'll film interviews. And I kind of had some other goofy ideas that I wanted to pull off, some of which we did, some of which we didn't. But I was thinking about like interviews and that's it. It was kind of like their, I don't want to say scheme, but it was like I was like getting everyone in a room and then they booked the concert completely on their own. And I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. So then I figured out, okay, well, we should probably film that, so or at least some of it.
Yeah.
In my mind, like I mean, I'm still kind of a new, like I hadn't really made anything like this before. So I was like, the ideas were coming so fast. And so it was like I had only planned to film the new songs. I was going to film
Okay.
the solid gold songs and then like ended up filming like almost the whole concert. And that's like what became like so much of the different parts of the movie. And it was just like kind of spontaneous. It was like, well, Jeff is now hanging off the rafters. Like, I can't not be filming right now. Like, I don't know. It's just like kind of hard to explain like how everything just kind of like fell into place. But it really did. And a lot of it came from the fact that like those guys love playing shows. And I just I really wanted to make a movie about them because I love them so much. And I it's kind of weird because like I don't think that their story is necessarily like that interesting if you're just telling it. But like if you're experiencing like, oh, like this band had such a live energy and like impact on their fans.
Yeah.
Like it's
Hmm.
kind of hard to capture that in just story form. So like that's why it was like important for me to be like, oh, okay, I really have to show all of this stuff that like makes them the band that people still love. And not only give the story of that, but like the experience of what it would be like to seeing a squad show and then kind of giving people like kind of like the I don't know what like kind of just the thing of like they're still here. Like they're still
Yep.
playing festivals once a year. Like you could still go out and get this experience. Like it doesn't have to live in the late 90s and say like, oh, that used to be cool. Like, no, you can still get that experience if you care enough. You
Hmm.
can still go catch one of their shows because they're still pretty amazing.
Yeah, and it was awesome, just seeing that new footage, of them and seeing, the energy is still there and like they're having a lot of fun, on stage. And it's something that I brought up when we were talking with Jeff. I was like, man, I wish you guys had a live album,
Uh-huh.
because I feel like that would just really capture, just the energy of like when I think Squad 50. I think of that energy and the back and forth, with the crowd and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're definitely a band you can't explain or describe well without experiencing the performance. Like the recordings are an aspect, but not the story there. Like as good as that's not a knock on the recordings. That's not saying that the music isn't good. That's not what I mean
Right.
at all. But the music that you might listen to on back then a CD, now on streaming probably, or even a little bit of vinyl, informs you a little bit of like what Squad 50 is, but if you haven't been there, you don't really understand this band because
Yeah.
that's where the magical part happens. As fun as the music is by yourself or in like other settings, when you collectively experience that music with them, and it hasn't like it's I didn't get, I wasn't at the Orlando show that you captured footage of, but I was at that Five Iron set, and like it's
Uh-huh.
incredible how much how fun that set was, like how
Yeah.
interactive that set was, like how much the crowd was into it, and they matched that energy and exceeded it. And like it's something that makes them different from a lot of other popular bands in the same scene
Yeah.
at the same time who may have played similar kinds of music. They are still set apart
Yeah.
because of the way they perform live.
Yeah, man. I mean, how many bands can you say like, oh, that was a great show. I caught a crotch to the face.
Exactly.
It's fine.
And if you do,
Did
you
you,
put it on a flag. Yeah.
dude, you guys remember the part from the documentary where Jeff like he like jumps onto a guy, like wraps his knees around the guy's head and like he basically like crowd surfs a dude's face. Like
Yeah.
he does and then they're talking about how they like he just like, oh, like you just teabag that guy.
Yes.
I want to know who that guy is because he was super tall and he just took a crotch to the face. Oh, it's
I
so
would
funny.
too, so we can form a club.
Oh yeah,
Um,
The Jeff crotch.
that's
Jeff
right.
The
crotch.
Squad 5 Oh No Club.
I'm sure there's more of you guys out there. I mean, like every show Jeff jumped into the crowd. So
Yeah.
I feel
So
like there's got to be more survivors out there.
that's a good way to put it.
So if you've taken a Jeff to the face, call
Yeah.
9528 Squid.
If you've encountered Hefecito up close and personal,
Oh, what's
share
that?
it with us.
What are those shitty lawsuits that they do? What are they called?
Oh,
Oh, yes.
if you or any of your family have been hurt or killed.
Yeah.
What are
What?
they called? Class action
Oh,
lawsuits.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Where
Yeah, we
like
need
the
enough
people
people
get a
to form the
payout
class.
of a super small payout, but the
Yep.
That's
lawyer is the
right.
one who makes all the money.
Correct.
Yeah.
There's YouTube, or on YouTube, there's footage of Squad 50 playing at Furnace Fest in like '02. So it's
Mhm.
literally a 20-year gap between that most recent time they played.
Oh yeah.
I
I
watched
didn't
it
even
the
think
other
of that.
day, and like Jeff has a lot of hair. So that's one difference. He's in a shirt and tie, which is of course good, but it's so similar. That's what struck me. It was like
Yeah.
how the energy, how the performance, the intensity, the fun, the crowd, and they were in the shed then versus the pond stage, but like
Yeah.
there's a 20-year gap. But if you watch those two things, other than maybe the hair difference, it's not, and the quality of the picture, it's not so distinctly different of an experience
Right.
over a 20-year period. So when you say that of like you're trying to tell people you could still get this, you're not getting some like diminished version. You're not
Mhm.
getting the cracked voice like of the shell of what once was.
Yeah.
So you're getting that thing happening in the now that also once happened more frequently. You just have less chances to experience it now, but it's no less enjoyable, fun, intense,
Yeah.
enthusiastic, energetic, all the things you might want to adjectives you might want to use.
Yeah, it's true. It is like like it's almost like unbelievable how they're still able. I don't want to say that they're still able to do that. I don't mean like physically. I just mean like that the experience you're getting as a fan is kind of the same.
Hmm.
I kind of think back to that time and like I think that probably the major difference for me personally is like I think that back then it did feel more like edgy to go to a Squad 50 show and be like, "Oh wow, this is actually like on the edge of I don't want to like say like feeling safe or something like that, but it did feel
Uh-huh.
really like they're really pushing the bounds of something incredible here." And the hype around it was like so huge of like everyone in the room being so like, oh, this band is like so amazing. Like in 2002, especially was like go time for them. Like they were having so much fun and it seemed like they were really being received well. I think that that's probably the biggest difference for me is like I wish that everyone else could see how amazing this is. And
Yeah.
like, I mean, obviously, like I'm the one who made a movie about it because I love it so much. And I'm trying to like get people on board with like, guys, come on, come on. It's
Right.
sick. Like,
Yeah.
come on, you know? And it just kind of I do get my feelings hurt a little bit sometimes because I'm like, you look back to the past and it's like a lot of people show up to things because it's like because it's cool or whatever. And rarely do people like us actually like, really grab onto something and say like, oh, like it might not be cool anymore, but I understand how amazing this is. And like I'm gonna let it affect my life. A lot of people don't get to that place. They're kind of like, oh yeah, I experienced that, been there, done that, whatever. I remember that band from 20 years ago. Never thought about them again, whatever. I feel like it is a special thing whenever you can grab onto that thing and say, like, not only am I going to cherish this for something that was really amazing and, made a big impact on me, but like I'm going to like allow it to take up space in my life in such a way that's like this thing is beautiful, but like I don't have to be defined by that thing in a way where it's like I'm obsessed by it or like there nostalgia is kind of a I don't know, like it can be dangerous. Like people can
Mhm.
take nostalgia too far
Yeah.
and sometimes that can be weird where it's like, oh, like I don't know. I definitely am guilty of that sometimes where I'm like, oh, like that thing was so cool. I'm obsessed with it.
No, I think I get what you're saying because when you're younger, I think particularly if you like music that's maybe a step outside the mainstream,
Mhm.
part of that is making sure like it's part of your identity. Like it defines you as a
Mhm.
person more than just your musical taste. You're kind of making a statement that you make your own choices. You aren't following the crowd. You have some critical taste or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's a bigger part of who you are to be identified with maybe the music you listen to. And then at our age now, it's like it doesn't matter. I don't need my neighbors to know my musical preference. I don't need to wear a band t-shirt to give off the right vibes in the cafeteria to let people know what I'm about, kind of thing. So that I'll collect, like the people who are like me will gravitate and the people who aren't will go away and we'll stay in our, and we'll all know where we stand. It's not that. It's like, I almost think it's the way that Jeff described performing now of like, they're free from all the pressure of this is a living. So you can just kind of live in it of like, this is really cool and fun and awesome. And we love doing it. So we get to do it free. And I think that's the way we get to participate in it now of like this mattered to me when I was young, but that doesn't mean it has to be excluded from my life when I was old, but it also doesn't have to like it doesn't have to be my focal point or identity, but it I can treat it as this was important at a time, and when I have the time to participate in it now, I really appreciate what it was and what it is. And I think it is like there's a total freedom on both sides from the performance. And so I like all these festivals that have cropped up that have brought back bands. It seems to be a post-pandemic trend, whether it was Furnace Fest when we were young, like this seems to be happening. I think one of the greatest gifts are all of these bands that were like, we stopped because what it needed to be at the time it couldn't provide, like because it had to be a
Uh-huh.
living and a this and a that, and we had to move on to other things. But I never lost the joy of whatever, whether it was the creating or the performing or both. It's like now I'm at a stage in my life where I can do just that part of it that I liked because it's not my whole self. It's an
Mhm.
opt-in choice. And then we get to participate that way too. So I feel like it's shared. It's like mutual of we all know what we're doing here. Like we all have a full life outside of this, but for this moment, let's all, and it's not nostalgia. Like Jason from Unoriginal Vinyl used the term sentimentality instead of nostalgia, like
Uh-huh.
in the kind of define the difference of being sentimental of a was more of like a gratitude appreciation for than just
Mhm.
a going back in time. And it's
Yeah.
not so much a going back in time. It's like, hey, there's no reason it has to stay in the past, but it also doesn't
Yeah.
have to be my whole life. Like I have wife and kids and like
Yeah.
a job and things that are front and center that need that my attention. I can't make a band my life, not because I don't care about the band. So it's
Uh-huh.
which makes it in some ways just more fun. Like you can just go and be there because it doesn't have to
Yeah.
mean anything more than that. And you know what you're getting and how good it is and how you don't have that as often in your life as maybe when you were younger and it was easier to come by because you could build your
Yeah.
life around it.
Well, yeah, he and I were talking about that actually, and it was interesting to hear his perspective because it's kind of weird coming from him, Jason, because like he has really figured out how to be as involved as he is without letting it take over his life or something. I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe that, whatever, but like the prolific nature of what unoriginal vinyl does is very impressive. The amount,
For
Yeah.
the
sure.
to me, like the amount of projects they have going is like insane. They've probably put out like 30 records in the course of time that like no, probably more than that. What'd they do last year? Like 15 records? I don't
Yeah,
know.
somewhere
Like
like it's over 10 for sure.
35, 40 records. I don't know. But like since of me doing like one movie and I'm just like, man, I can't like imagine like how much interaction that takes, how many emails have to be sent back and forth and stuff and whatever. But like, I think that that's just kind of the beauty of like, he knows exactly where the unoriginal vinyl thing fits into his life, and he's not going to let it take over because he's very
Mhm.
like secure in like the portion of this that takes up this portion of my life lives here, and it doesn't take up more than that. And I think that that's really cool. And
Mhm.
I really respect like his whole philosophy towards like sentimentality, nostalgia, and whatnot, because like I think it's really cool that he is able to be involved without being like, I don't know, like what I was saying before, like being obsessed with something. Like he understands what the thing is. And he's not obsessed on the level of like, oh, I gotta recapture this feeling, like kind of how he was phrasing it to me is like let that thing live in the past, but we can all like celebrate it together all in one
Yeah.
moment,
Yeah.
like what you were saying, and then we
Mhm.
can go home and be with our families. And that's like where the real stuff is, like the
Yeah,
day-to-day life that we've all built for ourselves, like that's what it's all about.
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's presence versus escapism in some ways, right? Like
Yeah,
enjoying something to be in it, not to get away from something else.
yeah, exactly. And I think that maybe the nostalgia part of it is it's a cousin to that escapism where it's like
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that like if escapism is about making yourself forget your present, nostalgia is about chasing something that you remember or chase or like
Mhm.
escaping your current life, trying to grab onto something that feels familiar or feels like just out of reach. Like, oh, like maybe I can feel this thing again, like I've had that experience at so many concerts, and it's so heartbreaking because it's like you're going to this concert to try and find something that you have felt in the past, and you get there and you realize it's never there anymore. And it's like, man, if I could just like somehow train myself to like be present in this moment for exactly what this moment is and have no expectations to be something else. I'm getting there. I'm not
Yeah.
quite there, but I'm getting there.
Yeah.
It's hard. We're humans. Like we only know like it's almost like we're so basic or something like that, where it's like we it's like we're so limited to like what we feel like we can understand that we're not open to new things. I really believe that like people need to open themselves up to new things because it's like I know you loved Blink 182, but like it's never going to be the same. It's never going to feel like 2002 again.
Right. Yeah, and it's I don't know, like it gets tough when you get older because it's like you've or a lot of people anyway stop, looking for those new bands or something like that. You just kind of get stuck in that rut of listening to all that old stuff still. We've talked about it before, but like that was one cool thing about Furnace Fest was discovering new bands, like yeah, you've got, some of those older bands, but then it's like this past year, Michael Sarah Palin played. I saw them listed and was like, oh, that's an interesting band name. I'll check them out. They were one of my favorite sets at Furnace Fest this past year.
Mhm.
They were awesome. They were so much fun, seeing other bands that, I wasn't aware of as well while we were there. And then, while I'm, trying to find that CD, it's like, you're on Apple Music or whatever, and it's like, oh, if you like this, check out this. Oh, okay. So, kind of down that rabbit hole of like stumbling into all these other bands. It's cool to be learning about these other bands.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I think that the internet makes it really easy to discover new music. And don't get me wrong, I feel like I do discover new music fairly often just because of
Hmm.
how easy it is. But like what I like what I miss partially just because I don't have the like energy, motivation, youth, etc., is like being there like in the all age clubs every weekend and like discovering new bands that way is like that's like what I miss. Like I wish I'm not saying that like oh like I need to go change that, but like that's part of
Hmm.
it where I'm like but I think that I got way into the search. I don't know. A couple years ago is kind of when this ended for me more or less, but like I feel like I was just like always searching for new music in like certain genres and it kind of became an obsession where I was like the world is my oyster or the internet is my oyster. I can go find the kind of music that I want. And I got kind of deep into the rabbit holes of like a couple different like micro genres. And then kind of realized I was like, I'm never gonna see this stuff live. Like it's so obscure and I like
Mm.
love it for what it is, but like there's like an energy of live music that like you kind of need. I don't know why I'm feeling so passionate today, but it's just coming out of me.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's kind of like when my son and I went and saw Pulses and Nightlife was playing, and I didn't know who they were. You know, I recognized the name, and I knew one of Jared's buddies was big into them, and I was like, oh, all right. And they were so much fun live. Like my son and I came out of it, and we were like, man, they were really cool. Like I would go see them again. Like it's not necessarily like something I would sit down and be like, "Oh, I want to listen to them." But I would go see them live because they were fantastic and it was a lot of fun.
What was the band called?
Nightlife?
Nightlife. That's so funny. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
Of course.
First of all, I'm so glad that you discovered a new band live because that was what we are talking about. But like that band name, Nightlife,
Hmm.
there's a lady at my church. She's probably I don't know how old she is. I mean, she would describe herself as a baby boomer. Or I'm sorry, what was the generation before that? The silent generation. You know, she was like playing music in the 60s and 70s, and she had a band called Nightlife.
Oh, wow.
Really?
And I met her like a year ago, and she was like telling me, she's like, yeah, I had like a touring act called Nightlife, and we had like a 45. And I was like asking about it, and I was like, do you have it? Like, I like want to like listen to it, you know, I'm like just kind of
Right.
getting to know her. And she was like, yeah, I don't know. And so I like tried to find it on eBay and I found what I thought was it and I bought it and I brought it to church like, oh, I was like so excited. And she was like, no, that's actually not it.
Oh
And
no.
it's just like funny that like now you're telling me about another band that has the same name and it's like, oh yeah, it's just funny.
Why would you say Squad 50 is your favorite band? What is it about them that matters to you?
I think that probably the experience that I had seeing them was the most impactful. Like there is like a je ne sais quoi about them as a band in that self-titled era when they were really
Hmm.
cool and they were really fun. And
Yeah.
like those things don't always mix, you know, where it's
For sure.
like a band that's really cool might take themselves too seriously, but they didn't. Like Squat, I mean, maybe some members of the band did, but at least like Jeff kind of being like the forward facing part of the band made it fun and made it really like this is really accessible. Like
Hmm.
their sound, I feel was a very cool sound at the time, you know, bands like The Strokes and you know, White Stripes, like all these big guitar rock bands, you know, like that sound was really cool at the time.
Hmm.
And so kind of thinking about like, oh, that in conjunction with like the whole like punk rock, jump in your face, crotch in your face energy, like seeing that being 14 years old was like cocaine. Like
Hmm.
it was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe what I'm seeing right now. Like this isn't, and especially I saw them like at a mega church and the whole situation was kind of strange because they weren't on the bill, but they played with a bunch of other bands that did not match at all. So they played with like Super Chick and Pax 217 and
Mhm.
like a folk band, and it was like all this like weird kabobbled lineup.
Yeah.
And they played directly after like a Christian comedian. I was like
Sounds right.
up in the bleachers at this megachurch show, and like the I've just witnessed like a Christian comedian like do a set and then do an altar call, and then he's like praying, and I have like my head down, and I'm like up in the bleachers, and I have my head down, and this guy's praying, and the stage is like far away because it's a big church. And then in the front is like the whole like mosh pit area, which at that point was like empty because everyone's in the bleachers like watching a stand-up set basically.
Right.
He's praying, and I hear like the sound of like guitars like plugging in and like feedback and stuff like while the guy is praying. And I don't know what's going on. I open my eyes and realize that there's like a band that's like plugging in, like, and they're live, or like the sound guy has not muted the channels. So like you're hearing
Hmm.
like wee, you know,
Yep.
and like the
Yeah.
band probably doesn't know that they're live. They're just getting ready to do their set. But like the comedian guy like says amen, and immediately it's like the intro to
Yep.
I don't want to change the world, I want to change your mind. Like amen, and they're going. While they're like plugging in, like kids around me are like understanding what's happening, and they're like running down the bleachers in mass exodus. And I just like I remember hearing that and like kind of being like, this feels kind of unsafe or like not cool, or because I'm like kind of a sheltered Christian kid, but like I did get up and go, and I was like so proud of myself. I'm like, oh, like I, you know, I did that, and I'm
Yeah.
happy I did. So I kind of changed my life.
That's awesome.
That, yeah, thanks. That show, and proceeded to like have like the most amazing show of my life. Like it was like insane, like how just nuts that show was, and like just it was like so that alone just like it's like so special to me. But like so that was like the era for me where, or for them as a band, where they weren't really like a professing Christian band at that point. So seeing that show and being like, oh, that was amazing, but like I don't really understand what this is, and then to kind of go backwards through their discography and be like, oh no, these guys actually really care about their values, and they have a perspective that really, like, reading the lyrics to like Our State Flag Sucks, and like the California song really impacted me, like reading the lyrics of it and stuff. And so I think that that was kind of it for me, is being like experiencing it live, and then having all of these previous records to kind of dig through and kind of nerd out about. And I did buy a lot of Squad merch on eBay after that, just because I was so
Nice.
obsessed with them. Bought all the CDs on eBay. I was a big eBay kid too. Kind of taking it further. So like, they broke up in like '05, '06-ish. Wikipedia would differ on that. That kind of broke my heart because I was like really the right age to see more of Squad. Like I was turning 16 when they broke up. So it was like, oh man, like I'm like now getting old enough where I can like drive, and like
Mhm.
Mm.
a lot of the concerts were happening in Phoenix at the time, and so like I could have been going to see them, and I just like was just a little too young to get any more Squad 5 than what I had already gotten at that point in their career. They broke up. I was sad about it. I turned 18 and, was kind of like trying to experience the Christian punk scene, but it was kind of dead. Like '06 was when I graduated high school, and I went to Cornerstone for the first time. And, the whole metalcore thing was happening. I was kind of into it, but like I still was like still kind of like trying to live the punk thing, but the punk life or something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And kind of forgot about Squad 50 for a while. And it was like I'll say it was because like it was like my heart was broken, but like I think it was just like, you kind of grow up and you just kind of replace things. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
like
Mhm.
now showbread's a thing. And I feel like showbread kind of took the place of Squad 50 in my head for a while because they were like playing. They were an amazing band, and they were kind of riffing on some of the same themes that Squad 50 had. And so I got
Mhm.
real obsessed with showbread for a while. And
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, like
That makes a
their
lot of
live
sense.
show. Yeah, that does make a
yeah,
lot of sense.
yeah.
And
If you
kind of
watch
the
my
edginess,
documentary,
yeah,
you'll
like
you'll easily be able to see that I feel like the two bands kind of share a lot of DNA in some ways.
mhm.
And they're
Hmm.
both from the Savannah area, which is funny.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
It is, yeah.
But anyways, like Squad 50 kind of like phased out of my mind for a while, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but like I feel like they never stopped becoming my favorite band. But it's just like when a band goes away, it's like
You
I
move
don't
on
know.
too.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
move on. Yeah, exactly. But then like 2012, when they did the Cornerstone reunion, I like moved heaven and earth to be at that show because I feel like I never got the, goodbye I wanted. Like I feel like maybe the older Squad fans, it's like if you see Squad 50, my friend John Weatherford saw Squad 50 14 times. Like if you see Squad 50 14 times, or Dan Binder, another guy who was on the documentary, he saw Squad 50 like 65 times. Like
Jeez.
I
Yeah.
can see like when like if you were there for like most of their career and they break up, it's like okay.
Band runs its course, yeah.
But like
Mhm.
for me, it was I got to see them one time and it like changed my life. And then it was like they're gone. So they kind of lived on in infamy for me in some ways. So it was like they did a reunion whenever they announced that they were doing like a Cornerstone reunion show. I was like, I will freaking be there. And it was probably the second most influential show of my whole
Yeah.
life. I mean, I don't think if I hadn't have gone to that show, I don't think the movie would have gotten made because that show was like really what sealed it for me of like, oh, this is why this band is so important to me. Because like I had gotten to see them in the self-titled era, which was like, this is an amazing band. And I can tell that they have amazing personalities, but I don't really know them. Like
Mhm.
but then seeing them live and hear Jeff talk about like we lost our way, we were at our best when it was about the kids and following Christ and stuff like that. Well, that was, and I'm in tears at that point, like watching this because like this band has taken up so much space like in my heart. Hearing him say those things was like, I don't know what to compare it to, like your estranged family member coming back into your house and telling and like being incredibly humble. I mean, that's the only thing I can compare it to is like
Mhm.
Right.
I've known so much about this band and this guy, Jeff, like, but I never really feel like I got to know him, hear him talk in a certain way. And just like hearing him say all that stuff is like, oh my gosh, like I put you guys on this pedestal. And I'm not saying you should put people on pedestals, but like you recognize something in someone, and then when it's actually like real and it's like they're talking about it in such a way that's like, oh wow, like you fundamentally don't suck, and that means much to me. And so yeah, so I was probably like 25 when that happened, and that's like really, that they're my favorite band again, like
Hmm.
Mhm.
it's like you move on but then you get sucked back in. And when they reunited like officially, because the Cornerstone thing was like kind of a fluke. It was like Jeff, John, and guests. So it was like Jake from the Chariot playing drums, Landon from Showbread playing lead guitar, and then CJ
Mhm.
Mask, who's another guy from Orlando, filled in on rhythm guitar. So that was kind of like a, it was like it was kind of thrown together, like as they would describe it. But then in
Right.
2017, they really reunited. Like they got Chris back in, like Adam Garbinski was like pitching in, Justin from the Bombs album came back, and so they were like a band again. So I went out to LA to see one of their shows. They did two shows with Five Iron, one
Hmm.
in San Francisco and one in LA. So I drove out to that and I met Chris, and it was like a memorable interaction for both of us. Like, he knew me and I knew him, and we kept up over email a little bit. And then 2019, I met Justin because he lived in Phoenix. And I'm not totally proud of how I handled this, but it's funny. But like I found
Sounds like a good
out,
story.
it is funny. I found out about their show. Justin was playing with another band, like a local band in Phoenix. And I found out about it through Instagram, and I showed up, and I had kind of put the pieces together that we had a mutual friend, that Justin Garbinski, the drummer of Squad 50, and me had a mutual friend. His name's Kyle. And I hit up Kyle and I said, "Hey, like, I'm a huge Squad fan. Would you introduce me to Justin at the show?" And I'm like, kind of not proud of that. I'm like, I should have just gone up to him. It's like, I know who you are. Do I need to be introduced? I don't know.
Right.
Anyways, it was silly. But I asked my friend to introduce me to him, and I did. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm such a huge fan. Like, the band means so much to me. And he's probably like a couple beers deep at this point. I'm just like nerding out. And I'm like, oh, man, I just like got so many questions and stuff. He's like, well, fire away, man. He's like drinking, like he wasn't like wasted or anything, but it was just like, so like the first question I come up with, like off the bat's like, oh, what was it like working with Dwayne Barron? Dwayne Barron is, a producer who has worked with like a lot of bigger bands, and he was like a big glam rock producer,
Hmm.
and he didn't even remember. And he was like, Dwayne Johnson? It's like,
The Rock?
no, dude, like the producer of the album that you played drums on, Dwayne Bear. And he was like, dude, I don't even remember who you're talking about. And so and then basically what I was like, hey, we should, get a drink sometime or something. And like, let me ask you questions about being in Squad 50, whatever. I tried to work it out with him. It never really worked out. It was just like, you're busy. I get it, whatever. And that was kind of the impetus that made the documentary happen in my mind, because it was just kind of this thing where it's like you go from approaching people in this certain way where it's like, oh, like I'm a fan of what you do, and I know way too much about you, and like all I want is to just have a beer with you and ask you questions. But then you realize, like, you know what? Like, the thing that I don't know, I'm kind of lost in my thought here a little bit, but like the idea of making a documentary came from that, because it was like, oh, like, do I want to get a beer with you, or do I actually want to like make something cool about you?
Mm.
And it was just kind of like, you know what? I think that I want to be the person to do that. I have a filmmaking background, but like I said before, like I was a little rusty. Like I hadn't really made anything in a while with a camera. Like I kind of just I had a job, and I was like working in the news, and I was a barista, but I wasn't really making stuff at that time. I was a little rusty. And so, but I was like, I think that I could pull this off. And so I made a couple smaller documentaries over Zoom, because this is like right when the pandemic happened, is when I started doing doc stuff. And so I made a couple smaller ones, and they all went well. And I was able to use those to show them to Chris Klein, and tell them like, hey, I want to work with you guys on a documentary, here's what I've made. And they went for it. It was kind of unorthodox in the way that we did it, because, typically you would get a Kickstarter and you would raise
Hmm.
money to fund a project like this. But the Kleins basically were like, we don't really want to do a Kickstarter. We think that it's kind of an old method of going about that. Like, what if we just take some of the money that we make off of Solid Gold and we'll just give it to you, and then you can make your movie with that. And it was less money than maybe we could have had with the Kickstarter, but I didn't have any outside pressure
Hmm.
to fulfill a due date or like prize. What do they call those things? Like rewards. It
Yeah,
was
Yeah.
just like,
the rewards. Yeah.
yeah, we just used that money basically. Almost all of it went towards me and Aaron, the cinematographer, flying out to Orlando, getting hotels. We rented a little bit of gear, mostly just lights. Aaron had all the camera gear because he like that's kind of his job. Yeah, almost all the money went towards that weekend. And I had some wigs made because I had this
Hmm.
idea. I don't think I have. Yeah, I put them in my office, but Lynette Howsky, she's a bud of mine, and she does like special effects in Hollywood.
Hmm.
And I used some of the budget to have these wigs made of Jeff and John from like the year 1998, and then Jeff and John from the year 2002. And
Oh, that's great.
I didn't end up using them in the actual movie. Like there was just like I kind of like kind of the idea there was like I kind of wanted it to feel like a variety show where there's like special guests and stuff, but I couldn't get
Oh,
anyone to
okay.
come out. So my idea kind of got shot in the, you know, like a dying animal. I tried to get Ronnie Martin to come out. That would have been
Oh, that'd
fun.
been cool. Yeah.
So it was like the idea was like I was gonna have a special guest like come out and like give them the wig like they're giving them like a piece of treasure or something like that, and they would put it on and whatever. It didn't happen, but I
Hmm.
paid to have these wigs made. And so at the live show in Tucson, like we came out, me and my friend came out in costume as Jeff and John. And so it's just
Well,
kind
that's a
of
good
part of
idea.
kind of part of the live show now. And yeah, the wigs are sick. Like they're like it's just like sad that they didn't get used in the movie because of like how sick they were. Lynette did such an amazing job, but I was like, okay, I got to find a use for these, and so we did.
Right.
That's
So
awesome.
we're gonna do another show in Savannah. We're
Okay.
working on it, but yeah, the wigs are coming back out for that too.
Nice.
That's what I was going to ask you. What's coming up for the documentary to get it out there where people can watch it?
Well, yeah, so the Savannah show is really the thing that is like you know, one has to happen before the other. So, because it's
Hmm.
like, the Savannah show is going to be the big one where, we're going to go all out we're going to do a screening and a concert.
Right.
So I want people to come to that because it's going to be sick. Like I said before, like you can still see Squad 50. Like they didn't
Right.
die. Like they're not dead, you know.
And do you have a date for that yet, or?
Do not.
Okay.
We're working on it. We thought it was going to be February. Now it's looking more like May because
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
not really free in April. And February, March is too soon for
Yep.
the book with venues, apparently.
logistics. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so we're kind of thinking May, I guess. But
Okay.
so long story short, I mean, like the movie's going to be out when we do the show. So like if that show is going to be out, happens on a Friday, the movie will go online on Saturday or something.
Nice.
So that's kind
Okay.
of the plan because we want people to, come to the show. And
Yeah.
if people have the movie at home, like, they're not going to
They
want to
won't
come to the
come.
show.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Who knows? But like people that like, I booked I've only had one screening of the movie and it was in Tucson and we did it over Thanksgiving weekend. So like, nobody really came out like to that, but like I really want people to like come out to the Savannah show because
Hmm.
like you're gonna get a movie and then you're gonna get the band that the movie is about. So like it's just like it's a connecting point and it's only gonna happen once. So
Right.
Right.
come,
I seriously might try and fly down for that.
dude. I would love
Yeah,
to
I
meet you in person.
May sounds doable potentially for me because I told Jeff when we talked to him I'm going to be in Savannah next in February. So when originally we heard February, I was like, what if the dates aligned?
Oh man.
But it's not
Yeah,
so
didn't
far away
happen.
for me. Yeah, but it's completely doable for me, and I'd love to be there for the screening concert, like the show, the whole thing. And it'd be great to meet you in person and like the whole
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
Um, you were gracious enough to share the documentary, so we got to see it. But I would love to see it in a theater, like
Right.
that
yeah,
setting too. There's a difference between that and my living room. So I
yeah,
would love to get the full cinema experience plus a show, which is
yeah.
worth it there.
Me too. It's something that I want to experience as well.
What's the best way for people to keep up with you in the documentary then to know to be able to make plans to be there?
Yeah, Instagram for
Okay.
sure. It's kind of tragic that people are kind of moving out of Instagram, Facebook world now just because of the whole, you know, Trump presidency or whatever, but like
Hmm.
that's like how people are connected right now. So
Yep.
that's kind of where it is. So you can follow me on Instagram. I'm John Caleb Jackson, or you could follow Squad 50, which is Squad 50 underscore official. That's their Instagram account.
Cool.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be sure to mention it, once the
Yeah.
dates are up for that on here for sure. Because I'm sure, we'll be talking about trying to get down there as well.
Hmm.
So
Thanks, homie. That would be
Yeah.
awesome. And anyone who's listening, Kevin, one of Kevin's tapes, it did make it
Yeah.
in to the
yes.
documentary. In fact, I think that you are one of maybe like four people who actually sent me a tape. I did like that was one of the earliest interactive things that I did for the movie was like when I was just getting it going before I had gone to Orlando to film anything, I was just like, who's got footage?
Yep.
Because I didn't have anything yet, and you were one of the first people to actually send me something. So thanks for making rock and roll work.
Yeah, no problem.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
And now we're here podcasting.
Yep.
That's right. And our new campaign is to get Squad 50 back to Furnace Fest this year
Oh,
for another show there.
oh,
And Jeff said they'd love to do it. John said he'd love to do it. So they're down. They just need an invite. And they said they'd go back.
yeah. That
And
would be amazing. I would love to see that. And I like your guys' idea of the Bombs playthrough.
yeah,
There's
that's
a
Kevin right there.
there's a lot of good songs on that record that they don't really play anymore.
Hmm.
Right.
And that, like they talk a lot about how the tempo is like up
Yeah.
whenever they
Yep.
play that stuff live. So like think about hearing like Tramps on the Run live. Like
Yeah.
that would be sick. Or like even like Don't Look Back would be
Right.
really
Hmm.
fun. I don't know if they would make it faster or maybe deliberately like kind of lean into the whole it's real butt rock. That song is
Yeah.
like every rose has its thorn, you know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But yeah, I was pushing, like get them at Furnace Fest, do the album playthrough. Shoot, let's get someone to record it so that they have a live album, or live DVD,
A
Blu-ray.
live DVD.
Or both. There's no reason to make it an and or either or. It could be an and both.
Kevin,
Yeah.
your ideas are great.
I feel like we always talk about Furnace Fest, but one thing that's I think is special there is you just have this concentration of people who can appreciate. Like you can just get a big crowd who knows what they're
Uh-huh.
getting, who's into it, which is hard to
Yeah.
replicate in stops if you go to cities, like just to get that mass of people. at an
Yeah.
event like that, which has already gathered those folks who are going to appreciate you already in one place. And
Hmm.
so you get a bigger group and it's special. But yeah, I'm all for anything that pushes another show.
Yeah.
That gives another opportunity to go see them.
If only we knew someone who did video that could record it.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Have to investigate these possibilities.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, the
Yeah.
seed has been planted. Now we just need to become real, right?
Yep.
It's true. Yeah, filming shows like that is it's not something that I do often, but it is fun.
Yeah.
But
I actually had to do an MXPX show once, and that was the first time I ever like filmed a concert, and it was so fun.
nice.
I don't know if you guys know this, but my friend Derek, he's from Tucson. He directed a movie that Mike Herrera like ended up being in and ended up buying, basically like became partners with him, like bought part of the movie
Oh,
and
interesting.
Really
owns it. Yeah, you guys should check it out. It's called DIY the movie.
Oh,
interesting.
yes.
You've heard of it? Oh,
I've heard of
cool.
it. Yeah.
Nice.
I
Yeah,
have
that's
not
its
seen it, but I have heard of it. Yeah.
yeah, so that's my bud Derek's movie. He's from, well, he's originally from Washington, but he lived in Tucson at the time. Now he lives in LA. But in like 2009, he put that movie together, and MXPX is, I don't think he's still their manager, but he was one of their managers at the time. His name's Tommy Rat. He lives in
Hmm.
Tucson. And
Oh,
so he just kind of had like a connection to MXPX. Like he didn't really like MXPX, but like it was pretty cool for me because I liked MXPX.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was just like pretty cool. I was like basically like a kind of like a PA on the movie.
Hmm.
But then, like Mike Herrera was there and stuff, that was pretty fun.
Oh,
This
that
is
is.
this is in the period of time like when MXPX was kind of on a downswing and they weren't
Mhm.
really playing as MXPX. Like
Oh, was that the
all
MXPX All Stars
yeah.
when
Oh,
they were doing
yeah.
that? Yeah.
But Mike was really focusing on his band Tumbledown.
Hmm.
And so that was kind of like the capacity that he was playing in. So
Okay.
whenever he's in the movie, he's like, I'm Mike from Tumbledown. That was like his thing at the time. But of course, to me, I'm like, I know who you are.
Right. You can call yourself whatever you want,
Yeah,
Right.
but I
but
know.
yeah, you guys should check out that movie if you get a chance.
Cool.
It's pretty fun, and it's all shot in Tucson. So now you
Nice.
know.
Well, should we play a quick game, do you think? Or
I think we should.
Games. I love games.
did we come up with a game?
Oh, are you looking at me like I'm so
Nope.
No, yeah, on the spot. Make up a game. Make it happen.
I
No,
do
he was
I
looking at
do
me.
I do want to share
That
my
would be a very funny thing to do at some point is just
You're in
make the
charge of the
guest, you're
game.
in charge. What are we playing?
nothing is more nerve-wracking to me than being expected to do something that I didn't know I was expected to do on the spot with an
Uh,
audience.
so this is we try to tie our games to something related to the guest, that would make sense, and then us. So we like to have you put us in some sort of order or assign us something. So in your case, oh, we got a PD Hutchie arriving super late,
Ooh, we get a
about to
Pete.
join us for the
Okay,
game.
great. Because I have
Yeah,
something that
Pete's.
I wanted to do for him.
Oh, that's
Oh
right.
yeah.
Pete's here for the game.
Look who's here.
Pete.
Hello, guys. I'm so sorry.
There he
And that
is.
about
We
does
got
it for
him.
this episode of A Pickle.
Go ahead and do the outro, Pete.
Well,
It's me,
today,
Brock.
Yes.
Brock, you look so familiar.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
Oh,
gonna do the Brock thing.
Oh yeah. Now you're Brock.
oh yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Tell Brock that
Oh,
he's been replaced.
onward, pickle soldiers.
Nice. Do you want to tell Pete what you or us what you want to tell the group?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was talking to the guys earlier about how I have these different ways of trying to remember people's names. And
Yeah.
yours was the first one that I thought of, and it's funny. So
Oh
PG-13
man,
is how I remember your name.
I don't know. I can't see this yet, but I'm loving this. Okay.
All right, let's see if I can get there. Okay, so this is the end result. So if you take G4,
Fun
so
with math.
all right, so
Okay, here we go.
G four G's. Pete, you are gregarious. You have a goatee.
Correct.
You are red-haired, ginger, and you
For the
are a
most part,
guy.
yes.
G4. Follow me?
G4. Yep.
Okay. And your name is Pete.
Oh yeah, I see. I see. So that's where the 13 comes in. Got it.
One
One plus
plus
three.
three,
Yeah.
Oh,
PG-13.
Oh.
That's how I remember your
Yes.
name.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
That's what we'll be calling you from now on.
PG-13, baby.
That's right.
Yeah.
that's
That's
awesome.
literally, I remembered from your Instagram videos that you had a goatee and you were gregarious. So
Thank you.
now I will never forget your name.
Oh, I wish I could have been here sooner. I appreciate it.
That's incredible.
Okay.
Are you here
That's
for the
awesome.
games, Pete?
Oh, awesome. Am I and you know what's actually working this time? The laptop. So
Oh, that's good.
give me one quick second. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean that's fine. You can do whatever you want.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you for your
Yeah.
permission, sir.
Well, I meant for me to log into the Zoom, not on my phone. That's
I got you. I got you. I'm with you. So for tonight, what we thought would be fun is you've listened to at least a little bit of us, and then you've talked to me and Kevin tonight. We don't have Brock with us, but you've captured his essence, I'm sure, by now. So we think it'd be, yeah, exactly. That's exactly Brock. We think it'd be great if you could pick us and assign a movie that
Ooh.
captures each individual Squid host.
This is great because I love movies.
And we always offer, since you don't know us well, you can always ask a question that will help you get to your decision, except for Brock. But we are happy to answer on behalf of Brock with a fictional truth that we make up on the spot.
So am I giving something to you that I feel like you like represents you as a person, or like that like I just met you, I feel like you would like this movie. Like is it like a suggestion or is it like
Oh,
a identity?
what is it too much to give you ask for one of both?
Ooh,
Or is that too many things?
let me fire up Letterbox.
That could be fun. Because then we would get an assigned movie and homework. Like we would have an identifier and homework, and that could be fun.
Yeah, I'm just gonna
We can let you know what we think too if we watch these films.
feel like this is an exciting opportunity for me to like be film nerdy, and I don't always get the opportunity.
That's what we're hoping for.
I'm just excited you guys are still on.
I'm kind of just shooting from the hip here,
That's what we hope for.
so don't be offended.
Never. No offense here.
Okay. Um, Pete, I'm gonna start with you.
Okay.
I feel like the identity movie for you is 21 Jump Street because I
Oh,
feel like you know how to have a good time. You're fun.
All right.
You're gonna take it outside of the box a little bit. You're gonna
All right.
like the face of the party, and you're gonna give people a good time. You're gonna give people what they want. Okay? I feel like you're always the guy on Instagram who's like, dare I say, like the face of the group sometimes, where you're like, here's we're at Furnace Fest, this is what we're doing, 21 Jump Street is that for me, where I'm like, it's just a good time. It's got some big energy.
Sure.
I'm gonna
Nice.
suggest Bill and Ted Face the Music for you because
Oh, no good.
it's an underrated great time that everyone should see. It came out in a weird time during the pandemic and a lot of people didn't watch it, but it's sick and people should watch Bill and Ted 3 Face the Music.
I completely agree.
Have you seen it?
I've seen it. I saw it. It got me through parts of the pandemic. My wife had not seen the original Bill and Ted movies,
Oh, dang.
so we watched both of them because they were pivotal to parts of my childhood
Uh-huh.
and my teenage years. And then we watched Face the Music, and it's great.
Uh-huh.
It's underrated, and I wish it came out at a better time.
Uh-huh.
Like it was great. It was a great timing for me, but I wish for the success of the movie, it came out at a better time because it was very good.
Yeah, I wish it got more eyes on it. I feel bad that I
Yep.
didn't choose a movie that you hadn't seen because it's always fun to get a movie recommendation that you haven't seen before.
Don't feel bad because I love the fact that you've seen Face the Music because not many have. So
Yeah, it's true.
it's a great film,
It's quite good.
and that gets it out there for the rest of the pickle peeps out there to go listen
Yeah, go watch it.
or go watch it. I guess. Yeah, you're right. Watch and listen.
Um, Kevin, I'm choosing The Town for you,
Ooh,
not only because it's set in Boston, but just because I feel like it's got a certain energy that you carry. It's like kind of hard to describe. Like I feel like you got a certain seriousness to you
hmm
that movie kind of I'm connecting the dots a little bit. And you my suggestion to you is a movie called Warrior because it's a great sports movie. You're
Okay.
telling me that you like sports.
Yep.
I don't like sports, but it's probably my favorite sports movie.
Mm.
Uh, it's an incredible, it's also a very serious movie.
Okay.
Um, it's a really beautiful story about a UFC fighter and the relationship he has with his dad. And
Is the Tom Hardy one that one?
yeah,
Okay, cool.
it's so good. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
I have
amazing.
not. No, I haven't seen it.
That's my homework for you. Jared, I feel
Hmm.
like you have a certain wholesomeness that I'm applying to. You have a wholesome face,
Take that.
and you feel like you've got a good sense of not just friendliness, but like kindness.
Oh,
And I'm choosing movies that have a kindness to them. Hunt for the Wilder People is the one that I'm like connecting with you as a person.
That's a good
It's
movie.
like
ooh.
it's like a really it's like a really sweet comedy about a 13-year-old kid who gets like put into a foster home
Hmm.
and he like runs away from the home with his foster dad away from the cops and it like antics ensue. It's like one of the like silliest, sweetest movies I've ever seen. I return to it often and it's got some great action
Really?
pieces in it.
Okay, I'm gonna check it
Um,
out.
Yeah, it's a
it's
good
so
movie.
good.
Is it geared towards adults or I have a 9-year-old and a 15-year-old. Is it like an adult movie or a kid movie? Like something I would watch with them?
Might be a little iffy for the 9-year-old, but the
Okay,
15-year-old for sure. There's like some
gotcha.
sexual humor in there,
Okay,
but it's definitely like a PG-13,
gotcha.
you
Okay,
know. It's an adventure and it's fun for like yeah, I would have no problem like showing my like 12-year-old nephew.
okay,
It's it's
cool.
it's really fun. It's a really fun movie. My homework for you is one called I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. And it's a movie that's like largely about unconventional friendship.
Hmm.
And it's kind of off the wall. I was kind of like reminded of it because we were talking about like parasocial relationships and like people meeting in strange ways and like forming real friendships out of them. That's totally what this movie is about. I hope you like it.
Cool. I will check it out for sure. Appreciate it. Yeah, these are new to me, so I'm excited about it.
Cool. I hope I did you guys right. I know I was just meeting all of you guys tonight, but hopefully I didn't cast anything over your personality that feels uncomfortable. But
No, not at
No,
all.
no, you're good.
So funny story about the town. So do you watch The Simpsons at all?
don't,
Okay.
unfortunately.
So The Simpsons did an episode called The Town that
Uh-huh.
was, like all about like Boston and things like that. And the old podcast that I was on before this one, we actually interviewed one of the producers from The Simpsons.
Oh,
It was
nice.
it was like a kind of like a real deep dive like breakdown on that episode. and somehow he heard it and contacted us and was like, "Hey, I'd love to come on and like talk, about it." So we ended up doing like a second episode with Matt
Whoa.
Selman.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
That's wild. It's such a good movie too. I mean, I haven't seen the Simpsons episode, but the
hmm
movie
Yeah,
itself
the
is just
movie's
so
fantastic.
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm.
I feel like that was kind of a weird time for movies too. It was like you weren't getting a lot of like banger action stuff. Like a lot of it
Right.
was really corny. Like it was a
Yep.
lot of like Jason Statham
Mhm.
B movie stuff and
Yeah.
like I don't know, there was something going on with action around then where like it was like you would get the raid, but then you would get like the Transporter 3, and it was like,
hmm
but the town. Hmm, that was a good one.
That's a
Yes.
good one.
Yeah, that was kind of the era of like big dumb action movies is what I used to call them.
Yeah,
And they were a lot of fun, but
yeah. I don't
you
know.
couldn't really like take them seriously. It was just like this is a movie to unplug my brain and just watch some insanity. Like all the
Yes,
Fast and Furious movies.
yes, still happening.
Which is
Yes.
great.
I will say that from that era, like um the Crank 1 and 2,
Oh yeah.
like they definitely stand out, in such a way where it's like it is a thing and it's also very self-aware of the thing that it is.
Yes. Yep.
And you almost like it's more common now, like where it's like you'll get like a meta movie, like Bullet Train was all
hmm
about that. Like, like obviously like the Deadpool stuff
Yeah.
made that a huge deal. But the Crank movies were a really special little franchise within that whole world where it's like just like balls to the wall action, but it's like the stupidest humor ever.
Yes.
It's yeah, those are amazing movies in my opinion. All right. Well, I think it's about time for me to get moving on. Do you guys got
Sure.
anything else for me?
I don't
I
think
think
so. As someone who, my degree from college was in television and radio production. So, like, as somebody who
Ooh.
did a lot of video editing and stuff like that, and even after college, did a little bit here and there. So like I totally understand like all the work that you put into this documentary, like just all the different aspects that you put into it, and it came out awesome. Like really
Fun.
enjoyed it. You did a great job, kind of capturing Squad and kind of putting it out there like this is why the band is special, capturing some of the humor that they bring, as
Mhm.
people as well. Um, yeah, just wanted to say like I understand all the work that goes into that and like why these things take years and years and years to do sometimes, especially if it's not like a full-time thing for you,
Right.
like if it's not your main
Mhm.
gig. I could, nerd out on like video editing and all that, and but that would be that would be like another 4-hour podcast.
Well, yeah,
So
if you ever want to do that, I'm here.
yeah,
That's
for sure.
awesome.
But yeah, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate you guys, you know, all watching it. I mean, it's really cool that you guys, would take the time to do that. And Kevin, that you understand, because yeah,
Yeah.
Yep.
it's a shit ton of work, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, when you can sit there working on something and it's like I've literally been working on this for
Mhm.
the last 4 hours, and then you look and you're like, oh my gosh, I've only done a minute and a half.
Yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Like,
it can get a little soul crushing in
yeah.
that way.
And I grew up with a TV radio background. I was a communications major,
Oh,
but
cool.
I was in linear editing, and that's why I was so bummed I couldn't be here sooner because I wanted to talk to you more about all that too.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
but I grew up in the like tape to tape linear editing. So like
Yeah.
the digital world is a whole new world to me. I mean, to a degree.
Mhm.
And just watching the film, I really enjoyed how you captured them, brought the sound to it, and really, captured their vibe. Especially after talking to Jeff on our podcast a few weeks ago.
That was really
Like,
fun too. Good episode.
yeah, it was so much fun, and I hadn't really gotten to talk to him before that, and just only really knew what his vibe and what the guy's vibe was through the film, and then meeting him, you're like, oh yeah, you definitely portrayed
Nice.
that vibe. So
That's
so
cool.
I want to thank you for just the fun that you brought to the film, and really just bringing Squad Five alive and their legacy. So it's pretty cool. I think it kind of reignites some stuff for the future for them. I don't know, but I think it's a good catalyst for that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really hope it does. I mean, like I want them to make, new music, and this is just like my opinion, but I think that like doing the documentary was kind of something to keep the ball rolling, so that it's, they're in a band. You know, they make records and they play shows, and those are
Right.
like the two things that they do.
Mhm.
So like to bring in like a third component of like what I do, it's like kind of I don't know, kind of fills the gap maybe in a way, so they can kind of think about like, oh, okay, well, like what do we want to do next or whatever. I don't know. So I hope
Sure.
that it does function as that, but like I'm just really grateful that, it seemed to be like the right place and right time to do it, because it's like, I don't know, if I would have hit them up about this 10 years ago, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Mhm.
Right.
But fortunately, I was just in the right place to be able to do it, had the time, had the resources. They had the time, had the resources. I think most of all, we both, like myself and the band, had the motivation to do it. Like, because
Yeah.
it was still hard to do on that front in some senses, but like they were ultimately motivated to play, and I was ultimately motivated to make a movie. And those two things made the project what it became, I'd say.
Mhm.
Very cool.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on. And yeah, like I said, I might try and make it down there for the screening
That'd be
if I can.
sick.
Yeah, maybe we'll touch base after the screening and kind of try and do another quick episode to kind of talk about how all that went.
Oh, that'd
Oh
be
Yeah, it'd
fun.
be fun.
I mean,
Yeah.
I could be there the whole time this time.
Cool. Kevin, if you end up coming to the show, hopefully like neither of us is in the hospital from like a crotch to face injury.
Right.
Like,
That's great.
all right, this is Pickle Home Companion live from Savannah County Hospital.
Do it, whatever it takes for the content, right?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Go
really love
listen.
whoever. Oh, sorry, Pete.
Oh no, I was just saying it was I had the whole social media thing going. I'm like, we're live from Savannah Hospital. Go listen. Onward, pickle soldiers. But yeah, go ahead.
I really like whoever said it was good to look you in the eye.
Oh,
I think
I think that was
Jared,
Jared.
right?
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
Jared.
Yeah.
That was Jared.
I wrote that line down because it was so funny.
That's good to hear. No, I'm gonna try to go to the show. Like May sounds more doable than, because I was wondering, I was like, oh, February, I'm gonna be down there. I'm not gonna be able to get back in the same month. But May, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I think I could plan for that.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
we'll
May.
see.
I might be able to make
Potentially,
May.
spoiler, Pete.
All right.
Yeah, we're thinking about, I mean, we're trying to book a show for Savannah.
Sure.
We originally were thinking February, but now it's like looking more like May. We'll see.
Okay.
Nothing's booked, so if any of the other guys in the band are hearing this and I'm like, what the hell? Nothing's booked.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or me and Jeff are trying to work it out with the venue and stuff.
Cool.
That's cool. I look forward to it. We'll definitely be in touch about that because I'd love to make it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, guys. I really appreciate you
Appreciate you.
recognizing what I do and being willing to put it on your show.
Awesome.
Big fans and
All right.
supporters here in your corner for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right,
Good
man.
night, guys.
Have a good night.
See you, man.
Yeah,
See ya. Thanks for coming on.
of course.
I've got us a closing. Oh, I can do my best fake Brock.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh yeah.
If it's any good. And that's the news from Lake Scabagon, where all the stage dives are in your face, all the Costco meals are affordable, and all the band documentaries are above average.
Oh, onward, pickle soldiers.
We did it, boys. Another perfect podcast.
Yes, we did it.
That's all we do.
I carried this podcast episode on my shoulders this week.
It was thanks to the icon, Pete Hutchinson.
You're welcome,
Boom,
America.
boom, boom.
You're welcome, Lake Scabagon.
First in your hearts.